welcome, welcome. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Renee. Hi, Tracy. Hi,
Hi,
Kristen.
Hey,
Joanna.
Juana.
Hi. Welcome back to Life Lessons for Times Such as Now. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And throw us a comment or two. Let us know how we're doing. We would love to hear from you. Well, today's show, we are going to talk about intergenerational trauma. Being that this is Mental Health Month, we might as well just keep rolling with it. Last show was
Yep.
What is Trauma? So again, today's show is What is generational trauma.
Mhm.
So what we don't realize in our lifetime is that, and I have to highly speak on the Black culture for this one.
Right.
Because we all have our trauma that we went through because of our family, but it all stems from our ancestors.
Correct.
No matter how we
Correct.
look at it. It
Yeah.
didn't start with me, and it's not going to end with me.
Mm.
Mm.
So intergenerational trauma stems from an older relative who went through a very traumatic event. And their emotional and behavioral reaction could ripple through the generation of your family and affect you.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And when it comes down to the Black culture, I hate to say it, but it started with slavery. It started with our ancestors, and there's other cultures that have been through stuff, but you gotta take care of home. So I want to address this to our Black culture. See, look at how do you
It is
feel about it?
cultures too.
I
If
know.
we're
I
talking
said,
about, other cultures as well. So you're all right.
yeah. So, and with that said, because that culture affected me personally. So my ancestors' past affected me personally. Because what they brought to their children and down to their children, now it came down to me. And I'm
Right.
hoping that I did better and stopped the generational curse, as they say.
Right.
So, ladies,
Well, thank you,
let's talk
Joanna.
about it.
Well, bring it.
Well, if we could put a stamp on it, embryonic trauma is also a part of that. Where in the womb is where also some of that trauma and intergenerational trauma exists.
Yeah.
Because what we as the mother holds in our womb, we pass it on to the child. And that disposition of the way that we are mothers all here, so we know that it is an umbilical cord, and directly in the effects of what that we not only put in our body in terms of alcohol, in terms of feeding, in terms of birthing, and we know what that means because we've all had. I know for me, my birthing was not easy. The last one I had was 39 and a half hours worth of labor. But I remember when you talk about that, Joanna, the last time that I physically laid hands on my eldest child, which he just made 41, thank the Lord, he was 6 years old.
Wonderful.
And that was, in fact, very traumatic experience because of what I thought was the normal, right? It was normalized for me because I was beat so much that I thought that was the way it was. But you're absolutely correct. So that is coming from a slavery mentality, which, yes, in terms of us as African American descent, we know that is where our country was built on slavery, and we won't go there. But because of that, my parent that chose to beat, because my father never, I think me and my brother got a whipping from him one time in my whole entire childhood. But it wasn't that way with my mother. And so I thought that as a young parent, I was a teen pregnant child, so I didn't know any better. And I would, strike my son like it was the norm. And until I seen the damage that had happened, and I had a friend at the time that said to me, "That's not the way we treat children." And I never will forget that as long as I live. And ever since that moment in time, that corporal punishment was not a part of my household. Um, my middle son, he probably should have gotten spanked a lot more than he did, but he didn't. Um, but he also had a couple of, handful, but not many. And then by the time it got to my daughter, she doesn't know what that means to have any corporal punishment. So I like what you said, Joanna. And I hope I got better. I could trust and believe in by faith that you probably did. But I just wanted to bring that out, that it starts also in the womb, that transgenerational transference of that intergenerational trauma, if you will.
Yeah.
You got to say that though, because with my therapist, she shared the same thing with me. And when I tell you, I was just in awe. And she was showing me different graphs, and she was showing me, parts of the brain and how it affects, an unborn child. And it just amazed me because I have a picture of myself. I was like a toddler, and I just looked so depressed. I'm like, I was a little baby that don't even know nothing from nothing. Why does she look so down and depressed? But now I see why, right? Because my mother was down and possibly, depressed and went through, all kind of hell, right? And I get that. And it's so, again, it helps me to understand, where the intergenerational trauma comes from, right? But I'm going to go even further than that, because of course, we go through the corporal punishment. We go through, how we just talk to our children. There's a video on YouTube, and how the granny be cursing the child out. Now it is funny. I'm not gonna lie. I be cracking up laughing. But if you look at it in the context of trauma, right? How would that affect that child? Now, mind you, it's a puppet, but the puppet acting like a child.
Yes.
And and we're all laughing, and we find it really funny because it is, but because it really hits home for some people. Like, yeah, that's how my grandmother used to talk to me, right? Yeah, that's how my mother used to talk to me, or my father, whatever, right? So it's almost like the norm in our community. I want to go further than that. I know, like many years ago, even before I was born, and they would share how they would do the paper bag. What is it called? The paper bag syndrome or effect or whatever like that. And so if you're darker, they will put a paper bag close to your skin. So if you're even darker than that, some Black families would disown you.
Yeah.
Some Black families wouldn't even want you around. They would no, they would cast you out. Even, further than that, like you couldn't marry someone that was darker than that paper bag.
Right.
Think about that.
Really?
Yes, think about that. Think about how the slaves were treated so badly that if you were a certain complexion, because the light skinned ones, they was out, inside the house, probably drinking Kool-Aid or lemonade or whatever, while darker people were, really being mistreated. And so, everyone wants to be accepted, by the white man, because it seemed like you're being treated better if you're light, right, than if you are darker. If you talk about today, people are bleaching their skin because they want to be light.
Oh my gosh.
Because in their mind, which is part of trauma, in their mind, being this dark is ugly. And of course, I've talked about it on several episodes. So that's also part of intergenerational trauma. What you think, Chris?
Wow.
Well, I'm going to take it in a different direction, because when we're talking about, that, especially as women, and I think in terms of, we don't need a man.
Oh,
And I think it goes back to slavery when they separated,
taking it there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go there, the man out of the house. So most of us, we grow up, having to be the man and the woman. But the fact and the truth of the matter is that we are women. We can never be men. And we really need to change that mindset and that thought from that generational curse, if you will, that women need to understand, especially the younger generation, because we had to learn and grow into this too. Oh, I can do it myself. I'm the man, I'm the woman, I do this, I do that. And we do not allow a man to be a man.
Wow.
So I would like, our listeners to understand that. And then a lot of us don't understand why we're single or why we can't keep a man. It's because we don't let a man be a man, and we don't take our rightful place as a woman. And then we want to get upset and be mad at the man when they don't do what they're supposed to do, because we take away that power unknowingly, because it's just something that has been bred into us.
Well, it's actually called intergenerational trauma.
Right.
Because the man was actually removed from the household in the early slavery times, and before then it was okay for the man to be removed and the woman to stay behind, and then master was able to rape her and then make children with her to keep the lighter skinned children populated and the darker man removed from the plantation. Okay, so that his seed and his darkness and his pigmentation was not something that was afforded on the plantation, so that way we know and we could breed these lighter skinned babies.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Right. And so that's where I have the problem at, is that folks are not, they're just looking at, oh, here you go again, talking about slavery. We all love one another. Yeah, we do, because God calls us to love one another. But we still need to take a look at how that is traumatic. And as much as I have to say this, I have grandchildren that are of mixed descent now, right? Because if we're going to go there, Crystal, the Bible, he said not to mix for a reason, right? And so when we start talking about that and we understood what that meant for us growing up, all we saw was just that we was light skinned and you was dark skinned. And that's why, and Tracy knows this, I've always said, I love your brown skin. She always used to say, and I used to always tell her that, like, there's nothing wrong with appreciating different shades of color. Absolutely. Like you understand? And we need to get, I love you said that, Crystal, mindset of like, what is this about? If you're a shade, what Tracy just said, if you don't pass the paper bag exam, then you're not accepted. Or if you what's wrong with you apologizing to that man for something that you did that was wrong, because you feel like you're a woman now and you a man, and you can never wear a set. You can't. We can't. But just as much as we have had to think this over our decades of living and being married, divorced, married again, we can't do it. So there's no way that, to me, this conversation should just go like, oh yeah, you want to talk about that trauma and transgenerational. If we don't get to the root of where that thing is really coming from and talk about that root of where that thing comes from, then we still can't be healed from it. Because we're never going to bypass that conversation. Because now it has really given me some like fire, like to really like bring it home. Like, let's talk about it if we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's like a whole new show. Because that goes deep. I know, Trey, you spoke about being dark skinned in the bag, but I dealt with stuff just because I was light skinned.
Me too.
And just because I'm light skinned, it's automatically known. I would have been the house person. I ain't gonna say the house, but what did they go through? Rape, torture, everything. So, and then we gotta, if we're gonna take it back as far as slavery, come on, you watching your wife, your daughter, whoever getting raped in front of you, and you can't even be a man and protect that person. So that is the low self-esteem. And then when we did come up in time, and especially like with welfare and everything, oh, you can't have a man in the house.
Gotta get rid of the iron.
Yeah. You know what I mean? You can't, if you make so much, you gotta, how? But others are living off of that with their husbands. So
Right, right.
couldn't, but these are things that to me stunted our growth, stunted our culture.
Right.
But in today's Gen Bs and millennials, they ain't happening.
X's.
And
Right.
I am so proud of them because I say sometimes I think they're stronger than us.
Right.
My generation, our generation, I think endured all that we could. We still made it, thank God. But what we endured, they wouldn't know how to handle any
Not
of what
today.
we went through.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Not
Right.
today,
Right.
not at all.
Right.
You
I
know,
do
so
have to applaud that, Joanna, because our generation today, they are able to, Asians with, Indian, the Hindus with African, and Anglo-Saxons with African American. And I do think that there's, a place for it. Like if it's true love, it's true love, and you develop that because skin color. And we haven't talked about what that looks like for that intergenerational. All we do is just say, what, you'll never understand what I've been through, and we probably won't, because each culture, I love that you started with that, has had their own set of intergenerational trauma. The Holocaust, Hiroshima, us as slaves, the Aztecs, the Indians, like, what, you name it, and yeah, it is about, I love that we was able to say this in our last segment. I think Tracy ended with this, the fact that we've all experienced trauma. If you are a human being, right, then you experienced it, whether it's intergenerational, whether it's hidden, whether it's rape, whether it's incest. That's where that stuff came from. Like, and I'm just gonna just
Yeah.
put it out there. That's where it came from. To me, that's just my history tells me that that's where it came from.
Right. I'm gonna just jump in and just piggyback on I forget who was talking about it. I think it was Crystal, but how women, want to be the masculine and the feminine one. And I remember, talking to some family members and because they would exclusively date outside of their race. And so I was really curious as to, why they were more intrigued by those women versus, Black women. And one of them said, and it always stayed with me, he said, because they're not so confrontational, they're not so aggressive, they don't act like they're a man, they're not standing toe to toe with me. And they just kept going on, and on with their description as to why they don't date us, or why they don't see us as feminine beings. Well, that comes from many years ago. And I know on one side of my family, the women was just like, I'm running the show, I'm the stronger being, that's just what it is. And then I had another side where, my grandmother, she was, very strong and opinionated, and my grandfather, he was a little bit more laid back and allowed her to run over him, I guess. But she still played the role of the wife. She still would cook him dinner every day. She would cook him dinner. She would make sure she looked presentable. She would tell me, he never sees my hair out without being done. So she used to wear a scarf on. So sometimes, she would still be, feminine. But on my other side, they was like, listen, it's just about me, and me. And I run all over you. I said to do this, that, and the third. Right? They're not saying, honey, they're like being real strong about it. And there's a balance to me. Right? There's somewhere it should be a balance. But I really believe that does come from slavery. It does come from when a man couldn't be in a home. It comes from that, right? And then when you're raising those children by yourself, how else are you going to be? Right? You have to be the masculine one, or the masculine and feminine, I'm sorry. Whereas you have to be aggressive in a sense that you have to, protect your children. You have to protect your home. You have to stand up for yourself. You have to do all these things. Because in the absence of a man, you still have to live. So you have to be that way. So maybe those other races, if you will, of women didn't have to experience that.
Mm-hmm.
So when we come out strong or aggressive, they say, oh, well, that's an aggressive Black woman. You don't know our story
Right.
and where it comes from.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's well put, Trey, because it's the truth. We had to endure so much from that time even up to now. Most of us have raised our children on our own, and we had to be, the strong one. We had to be all of that some people don't like, how we are. But like you said, the key word is balance. That's the key word. You can
Right.
still have all those traits and attributes, but you have to remember that you're a woman, and we have to portray that as well. You have to know when to speak, when not to speak. Us married women have to take care of our husbands because that's how we were raised. Still you're supposed to cook, and clean, and all those things, and be a wife. You know what I
Right.
mean? Wifely duties, and well, I don't know. I guess the other side is going to kick in. I can be submissive, but we
Well, I
we
know,
have to be,
I know that. Talk
you,
about trauma.
I'm submissive, but to a point.
Right, right. Because I'm a newlywed
Thank you,
considerably,
Chris.
and yeah, it is not it is not that side of me that kicks in, thank God, right? Because I know that balance, and it didn't come from me not ever having to be that, to some
Right.
fellas. They deserved it, right? But
Yeah.
in my husband's case, being that provider and being that person that's there, so then, yeah, Crystal, that kicks in, right? Because then it's there, and there is that balance, because you see that what also is about that trauma is because the man has been removed from the home. When he comes back, he comes abusive. And so we don't take a look at that in an intergenerational trauma piece, because then when he comes back, he's coming back with the hitting, because you know what? He's already, his self-esteem is shot. He don't and can't get a job. You have all these things that is befalling him. And not to say that he doesn't have a good argument about that. And on top of that, he's darker skinned, right? And so, when you couple all those things in there, that I feel like that is another show to invite yet men into the conversation, because that there's a set of trauma that they have gone through, right? And we can't omit the fact that they have had their own trauma, because you can't imagine what that must mean to be ripped from your family.
Right.
Like Joanna said, watching your women get raped, even your daughter, right? She's 10, she's developing, and God forbid some of these girls, the way they look today, I know I would cut a duck and the thing and throw it all the way away. She ain't got bobbit, ain't got nothing on me. You heard? Okay, so you feel me?
Love it. You better say it.
You know me.
Right,
okay.
right.
Better say it.
And Corinne knows me too. So I'm just saying, the bottom line to it is that there's trauma. I love that we're talking about that balance, because there is that trauma, on that intergenerational trauma on both ends of it.
It sure is.
It's not just the fact of the women, because I must stick up for our Black and brown brothers, because they did what they could with what they had, and I know that for a fact. And with all of that being said, I don't know, Joanna, you started it off with that, kicking it about, all I could think about is Claudine, because Trace and I know, like James Earl Jones.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
That's the movie.
That was a good show.
Right.
I love it.
Movie, what?
Yeah.
Claudine, and she held it down, right? But you know what? There was a part of her that kicked up too. Like, if you ain't gonna do it, then step aside, bro. Right. Just so y'all that know, we dating ourselves is about 1965, right around 1967. No, I think it was like 1972-ish. But look it up. The movie Claudine.
Right.
It's worth a watch.
That was a great movie.
Yeah,
Claudine loved it.
I
Yeah.
can watch that movie right now.
I can
Like,
watch it right now
yeah.
too. Don't have me start
I have it
crying
on
over
DVD.
teary-eyed.
I do
Me
too.
I still do too.
Yep, I don't
Right?
have
I
that.
love that movie.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Somebody
Like,
Yes.
kids
could
are
relate to it.
DVDs. What's that?
Right, right.
Yeah. DVDs is the
VHS.
thing that goes into the machine
Yeah.
and then it can.
And it comes in and it goes out.
Yeah, I got the VHS too on that one.
Oh, don't
Wow.
start. You know
Oh,
it. I
wow.
probably still got the recording, Chris. I love that movie.
Yes. That's
But you
a
know
good
what?
movie for young, excuse me, Trey. That's a good movie for younger people to watch so they can
Yes.
really see what women had to go through at that time, because it
Yes.
touched on everything.
It did.
Yes, it did.
Teen pregnancy and being the welfare, working and the working mom.
And hiding the man.
Yeah. And
And
raise their
hiding
children.
a man.
What we got to do to survive and to raise
Right.
our children.
Right. But not only that, she was doing what she had to do. She was strong, right? She was taking care of her business, but she wanted to be a woman. Right.
Oh,
She
what's
wanted to
beautiful
be
Diane
loved
Carroll? What?
and taken care of. Okay. Because that's what we
Right.
want to have too. You know,
Yeah.
but we have to step up and we have to do those other things. But we're
Right.
still women. We want to,
Right.
be in love. We want them to, romance us and all of that good stuff. But I just wanted to just, jump in on what Crystal was talking about, with being submissive. There's nothing wrong with being submissive if the man, actually plays his role. It's okay. Right. And, and everyone has a different definition of what submission means. For me, it's, the man and I working together to balance our relationship out. I don't really believe in strict roles for either one of us. If I don't feel like cooking today, it's okay for you to cook. I don't like to cook. So yeah, if you can cook, please do, because I'm not going to do it, right? However, if you're talking and you're so, passionate about what you're saying, I know how to tame my tongue today. I can tame my tongue. I don't have to, wrestle. I don't have to wrestle with you on being right. Okay. No, that's your opinion and you want to do that. And then again, so then how can we, make this work? So I'm okay with that. But again, the person has to earn that. You can't just walk in and just give that to someone.
Nicely said.
That's true. And I want to just piggyback off of you a little bit, Trey. I believe that if the right man, comes into our life, and even with, our fathers, women tend to generally fall into place if things are right.
True.
So we would do what we have to do. We just fall in place. So yeah, that's good. So if men can understand that and recognize that, then everything would be, smooth sailing. And also, I don't leave out the women, because we have to recognize that we need to tame our tongue.
True.
We have to tame our tongue. But see, then
that's what I was saying.
That does come with time.
Yeah.
That does come with time.
I agree. It definitely comes with time. It comes with experiences. Because one thing with intergenerational trauma is that if kids follow what they're taught, what they see, what they hear. So if I'm following my parents' ways of living or how I was treated as a kid, I'm gonna bring that into the next one. So when Tracy spoke about her other side of the family, one of her sides of the family, and the women being all aggressively strong and, overpowering, it's my way or the highway. And I can relate with that with the family, because that's how it was. We didn't know or have strong men to literally say, this is what it's like. This is how you as a woman need to be treated, or you as a young girl. You see them with their trauma that they're dealing with and how they handle it. So now I get grown. Now, how do I handle trauma? Well, guess what? Most of the time it's the same way they did it, and then it's like, until my experience jumped in, it was like anything that I went through, might not have got it done right away. But that took time, and it took healing, and it took energy, and it took a lot from my inner self to say, I need to change. You know what I mean? I need to change. You get tired of, if you're getting the same, if you're doing the same thing and you're getting the same results every time,
It's called
and you're
insanity.
affected by those results
Absolutely.
every time,
Right.
you have to realize you need to change.
Right.
Right.
You know?
And I think that when we talk about the man and how that looks in the through the lenses, no, we're not men, but you know, I have you know, brothers, I have uncles, I have, you know, have had to live it and see it like through, like, wow, what's going on with them all these years. And then, you know, only recently marrying, I see that my own husband has trauma. Right. And we talk about this topic very, very and we talk about it deeply, because what's happened is that, yeah, I like what Tracy said. No, it has to work for what works with you. You know, there's no, oh, we don't live in the 50s and the 20s.
Right.
And it's not like when
Right.
you come home. Now, I do make sure when he comes home, he got a meal, his, you know, his stuff is laid out. He's going to have his stuff and all of this. I do like you. I like that, Crystal, what you said about that balance, but you also have to be worthy of that, right?
Right.
And so to the younger generation, speaking to that balance and understanding that don't get married and just because it's cute to get married, right? Because you do have a responsibility to doing that. And when we start talking about what Joanna was just saying about what children see and how they act and how they respond, that's why I think that it's so easy for our statistics to just be like, okay, it didn't work for me, so I'll get a divorce. I'm out, you know?
Right.
And that causes transgenerational trauma, because now what are you setting up for the next generations? Like, is it okay to just get married and divorce because it didn't work? Because you haven't really understood what the fiber of what that really means in cohesive generational relationships. And when you bring two cultures together, just so you know, you are intergenerationally intertwined. Whether you can be from Harlem, or you could be from the Bronx, you could be from Saudi Arabia, you could be from India, you could be from Japan, Hong Kong, I don't care where you're from, you are going to intertwine the two cultures together. And it needs to be a conversation about what that looks like, because it is going to still come back to your own trauma. And that man and that woman, no matter how old you are, is going to be able to speak to what that trauma is for them.
Absolutely.
That's just, right, what I believe. Anyway.
Well, that was good. Well, we want to thank you all for joining us on Life Lessons for Times Such as Now. The topic again was, what is intergenerational trauma? So just in case you all don't know, the definition is intergenerational trauma stems from an older relative who went through a very traumatic event, and their emotional and behavioral reactions could ripple through the generations of your family and affect you, which it has. So we're going to work on that, and we encourage all of the listeners out there to dig deep and work on that. And again, we want to thank you for joining Life Lessons for a Time Such as Now. Until the next time, God bless and be healed. Peace.
Bye for now. Bye.
Oh, one more thing, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And also check us out on Facebook.
Please do, and leave a comment.
Yes.